Ah, the bright minds at university. I went to university too, but everyone just kept saying, large burger, small fries, thanks mate. Didn't help me. Many of you think EVs, car, four wheels, charge on the roof, etc., yeah? But of course there is another whole world of electric vehicles. And our next speaker has been involved for 10 years. She comes from an environment and sustainability position. She transitioned from solar, she's passionate, and she's always ensuring that people have had a great experience backed up by great service, friendly knowledge and quality components. While Rebecca is walking up to stage, we will ask Emmanuel to come and put her PowerPoint presentation on. And we've known Rev Becca, not Rebecca, Rev Becca, for a long time, and you've got to stamp your brand, right? Just to your point, sir, about knowing who, what, when and where. And for those of you who haven't seen her display or had some time with Rev Becca, you'll be in for a treat today. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome AEVA Bikes.
Do you want a mic?
This is fine. Thank you. Thanks so much, folks. And Rev Becca, Rev Bikes, it's a little catchy. You may know me from such videos on YouTube as installing the Bafang mid-drive motor, or maybe you don't. I'm very passionate about electric bikes, and you'll see why, hopefully, through my presentation. I will make a couple of contentious points, and I am a bit of a lawbreaker, so please don't hold that against me. I'm interested in promoting the uptake of electric bikes, and I do feel we need some flexibility around the current situation in order to do that. And safety is also part of my focus. So, 10 years ago, I imported a kit and started building e-bikes. I saw that there's a revolution that we need to have in relation to our transport mix. So most people just think of a car first and foremost as their main means of transport or commuting. I believe electric bikes have benefits across the board, so ranging from social benefits rather than sitting isolated in a car or focused on your screen while you're on public transport. The health benefits are obvious. You're moving. Whether or not you're exerting yourself is somewhat irrelevant. If you're moving, it's better than being idle. The cost benefits, obviously, cycling is a hell of a lot cheaper than other modes of transport. The environmental benefits mean we're not emitting carbon on behalf of our transport, presuming, of course, you're charging with renewable sources or having those fed into the grid on your behalf. And the fun factor is also a great motivator. I actually believe that allowing people to have more power and higher speed is even better in terms of all of these benefits actually increase with those factors, including safety. And I'll highlight why. Of course, this is not true in all cases. Maybe we should not be giving everyone more power on e-bikes. So, a little bit of background really quickly. Nature intervened in my transport journey and a tree crushed my car back in 2009. So I was sort of forced to look at some other options. As part of that, a friend of mine told me you can import kits and build your own electric bike, which I did find an electric bike at that time, but it was very daggy and very unappealing, very heavy. So a couple of years later, when I was trying to integrate some more sustainable factors into my then solar-based business, I found that building your own electric bike is a great way to actually get involved in the process, make something really cool that's practical for you specifically, and that, this was a great sustainable way to keep your old bike in use as well. So, I sort of got in the royal order and started talking to people about this kind of thing, and now my favourite thing to do on the weekend is to pull a trailer with my son's bike on it through the hilly areas until we get somewhere flat for him to ride, which is a fantastic thing to do. I've put myself behind bars there because that bike there that I'm riding, which allows me to pull the trailer with my son's bike on the top and him in it, is an overpowered electric bike. So it is actually a 500 watt one, and if I was riding a 250 watt one, it would not do the job. So I Do I really deserve to be penalised for that? That's my question. All right, just to give you a bit of a concept, what is an e-bike? Okay, so there's a lot of e-bikes out there. Most of you have probably seen similar ones to the ones on the left, which, by my definition, not really e-bikes. E-bikes are defined as the primary mode of movement is actually pedals. Okay, so the top one on the left there is it's got dinky little pedals that are not actually very functional. So that's not really for me. It's more a moped, right? The bottom one you might have seen around. So that's a Melbourne example of the Uber or Deliveroo riders, the ones that hoon around with a throttle on the footpath. Again, that's not classed as an e-bike officially. Okay, the ones on the right are your sort of traditional e-bikes, but the one at the bottom, you can see the motor in the rear wheel is very large. That's not likely to be a legal e-bike either. So who has a sense of the law? Who understands the e-bike law? Is there anyone in the audience who does? Yep, one person. So there's a couple of laws in Australia at the moment. So there's what we call the old law, which is on the top line there. It allows us to have a 200 watt maximum output motor, and there's not a top speed associated with that. There's no conditions around in terms of you don't need to be pedalling to access the power. All right, so you're allowed a throttle with a 200 watt motor, but the way the law is written, it says that the power must not exceed 200 watts. Which, if you know anything about electric motors, you would know that they have a continuous rated output and then a peak output that's usually about double that. So a maximum 200 watt motor is very weak. In fact, it's probably a 100 watt continuous output motor. There's not really any such thing that exists for e-bikes, so none of them out there are probably actually correctly falling in that law. So the new law about 5 years ago was introduced by the federal government and then adopted by the states. It's in line with the European standard, EN 15194, which allows us an extra 50 watts worth of power, but it's a continuous rated output power. So a 250 watt motor can peak at 500 watt, 800 watt, that's not really specified, but it's got to be capable of running all day at 250 watts. There's a top speed to that, which is 25 k's an hour, and there's the requirement that the power is engaged by your pedalling action. So you need to pedal in order for the motor to kick off. So a throttle is not permitted above 6 kilometres per hour. You're allowed to be able to engage the motor at a walking speed without pedalling, and that's it. So it's designed just to be able to walk beside the bike if you need to. So those are the two current laws in Australia. 250 watts, just to give you a sense, is apparently equivalent to the average cyclist's output. So it's designed to bring fitness of a fitter athlete or something to a not so fit person, or to put another set of legs on a bike to give you some assistance. So e-bikes have definitely been growing very quickly. Why do people e-bike? There's quite a few reasons. If we look at compared to other modes of transport, so compared to cycling, it's faster, you can go further, you don't break a sweat, and you can build up your fitness, sort of like being on an exercise bike, because you can determine how much resistance you're experiencing. So by turning the motor up, you're making the load easier for yourself, or you can turn it down, you can turn it off and ride it like a normal bike and get all the exercise you want, but you're in control of how much exercise you're actually getting. All right, if we compare it to driving, because I often get, e-bikes, isn't that cheating? Well, yes, if you compare it to cycling, but for me, my commute is not just about exercise, about getting somewhere, right? So I love electric cars, but they still can contribute to traffic jams and parking congestion and isolation of people and that sort of thing. So compare it to driving, e-bikes are much less costly, upfront and ongoing. There's very consistent trip times. Now, this is huge. If you're going to work and you have to factor in a buffer of 15, 20 minutes for in case there's a traffic jam or you can't find a parking spot, you don't need to do that on an e-bike. Okay, you can arrive at your destination within a couple of minutes of the time every day of the week. You park right out the front of where you're going. You're actually relieving stress on your way to work and or wherever you're going, and generating an energy within yourself. and of course it's environmentally friendly as well. Comparing to public transport, I find that it's dependable, so you don't need to, oh, what if I miss that train? You've got independence, so you can actually get from one destination to another, not wondering what you're going to do from the station to your destination. It's available 24 hours a day, obviously, and you're outside getting some exercise in the outdoors. All right. In addition, the energy efficiency, there's a cute little study being done here about the energy efficiency of different rates of transport. Obviously, an electric car is much better than a petrol car, but when we look at the food consumed, what I like to look at is the difference between cycling and including the food and the energy produced to grow the food required for you to output the energy to cycle your bike. It's actually more efficient to cycle an e-bike. All right. So the question becomes, why such conservative laws? If we actually want to encourage people out of cars and onto more active forms of transport, is our current legal system set up to do that? At 25 k's an hour on a pedelec bike, the motor stops assisting you and it becomes a very heavy bike, often with resistance, for you to ride. So in terms of most people wanting to commute at a speed of around 30 k's an hour average, that's pretty unsatisfying. So yeah, you hit that wall of 25 k's an hour and you do need to then do all the work yourself. If you're carrying a load, like me pulling the trailer with my son, 250 watts will be put under an extreme amount of pressure. So the motor associated with that is going to work very, very hard and probably get very stressed, very hot, probably be very likely to fail. So personally, I believe if people are carrying load, they should potentially be able to access a bit more power or have a higher output motor that's scaled back is possible, like the Australia Post vehicles have. But yeah, 250 watts is not designed to carry load. Is it a safety-based law? Well, for me, I understand having a speed restriction. I don't understand how travelling at 25 k's an hour on the road is safe for anyone. So when you've got cars travelling at 40 or 60 k's an hour, putting a bicycle at 25 leaves the car drivers frustrated and they take risks. All right, so there's nothing in this law about a requirement for hydraulic disc brakes or a higher standard of helmet or, anything that would lead me to believe it's a safety-based law. So that's what I feel. If I ride an overpowered e-bike and my one has exceptionally good brakes and of course I'm very safe having my son on board, but can I actually ride this legally anywhere? No, I can't. I can't register it. I can't make an exemption, even if I had a disability. So I don't understand why this mode of transport is not. There's not a way to actually access legal use of this sort of transport. So, as I said, when you've got to focus on safety from the rider's perspective, the way to maintain or to increase safety is actually to minimise the differences with cars. So, of course, we also have the option of building more bike infrastructure. That's quite a separate issue, and I do also agree and support that notion. But for the time being, a lot of people are stuck on the road with the cars. If you're on a bike and you take off at the lights and you manage to get in front of the cars, you're at a distinct advantage. If you manage to take off and you're not shaking and wobbling, so you get into motion and you assert yourself on the road, you're a hell of a lot safer. If you're travelling closer to the speed limit and cars are not going to get so frustrated sitting behind you and squeeze past rather than waiting for a lane available next to them to move into, you're a hell of a lot safer. Actually, I feel much, much safer at 40 k's an hour than I do at 25 if I'm on the road. If you're entitled to take the whole lane as a cyclist, you are entitled to do that, and you do feel more confident to do that if you're travelling closer to the speed limit. And one thing that is a bit of an issue with e-bikes that will improve hopefully with increased uptake is that you expect that, as a cyclist, you've got to expect that they won't see you. So you've got to expect that people have never noticed you. And as an e-bike, you've got to anticipate that they think you're going slower than you actually are. So those are some of the things that we need to actually bring together. I've got a bit of a table here showing the different e-bike laws in different countries. So I'll have to move a little quickly through this, but if you do want to take a picture and look at that later. What I've been told by the Bicycle Industry Association in Australia is that they are looking at trying to recommend we go closer to following the New Zealand law, which currently allows 300 watts of power and no speed restriction on the motor. So yes, of course, you've got to follow the speed limits of the road, which is fair, but there's no speed restriction imposed on an e-bike motor, which I think is a great start. Looking at some of the European laws, they're introducing secondary laws. So you've got your pedelec 250 watt e-bike. There's some 350 watt laws in some countries. You've got a 45 kilometre limit in Belgium on a speed bike. Okay, that can be 4,000 watts. Yes, you need to have the vehicle conforming, you need to wear a helmet, licence and registration. So that's more a moped law. But the one above that, the motorised bike, 1,000 watts at 25 k's an hour, that's more designed for cargo, load carrying, that sort of thing. In America, you're allowed 750 to 1,000 watts, 32 k's an hour. I think that's a great start. Personally, I believe if you're allowed to ride a horse on the road, why not have a horsepower worth of electricity on a bicycle that you're in full control of, okay? I do have a horse. She's got unreliable brakes. She spooks. She jumps in front of cars sometimes when I least expect it, and she weighs over half a tonne. So she's far more dangerous on the road, I would say. So just quickly, the costs of not changing. I think we're all pretty aware of the problems associated with everyone being in cars all the time, traffic congestion, parking costs and availability. The resources that we're burning through at this rate is the big one for me. Bikes reduce traffic congestion, obviously, dramatically, okay? If we make space for people on the road, this will eliminate a lot of our social problems. There's actually time inefficiencies associated with that too. Health outcomes, we're in the middle of an obesity epidemic, right? We do need to address this, and a lot of people can't make time for exercise. So if you're actually able to exercise on a commute, this is very time effective. So there's also a bit of an anxiety epidemic going on and mental health problems associated with people not focusing on their health and well-being as well. I like this little saying, this one runs on fat and saves you money. The environmental pressures, of course, I think we probably all know about this, air pollution and so on. It's not going through there. So in terms of transport being actually a massive percentage of our household greenhouse gas emissions, it's an easy option to overcome those. Okay, it's not skipping past. Whereas if you're on an e-bike, you're likely to be energised by your riding. You find the perfect parking spot, you ride on time, you're not contributing to the problem, several problems that you're not contributing to, and you're looking at a running cost of about 15 cents per 50 k's. All right. So again, just to summarise, increasing e-bike uptake, I believe we need to allow higher speeds. So e-bikes are improving trip times and closer to the speed of the traffic. Higher power to encourage people to do more with their e-bike. Providing secure parking facilities is a big one as well. And I think we should start considering financial incentives too. We've actually I've got a great table here. I probably don't have time to let you look at in detail, but California have now 3 different e-bike types, and they are providing financial incentives for people to actually, uptake the technology. And once you get started on your e-bike journey, you're there for life. So it's a good idea to help get people started. And promoting safety, let's travel closer to the speeds of the traffic. Let's look at bike lanes that are actually dedicated to cycling. Increase public awareness on cyclist rights. A lot of people don't know that in most states we are entitled to take the whole lane, for example. And basic standards for safer brakes. I've seen some shocking bikes out there. I believe we should crack down on throttle use and footpath riding because those are the problems that are causing injuries with e-bikes, and any bikes can injure people if you ride them on footpaths. So these guys that are riding their e-bikes on footpaths at speed with throttles are going to ruin it for everyone. So I think we need to actually start policing that. And that's me done. Sorry to be a bit rushed, but I'm not sure if there's time for questions. Not really, no, sorry.
Rebecca, thank you so much again. Again, like the young man from Nissan, one of the joys of being an MC is that you learn so much from different people. But Rebecca's just over there.
Yep.
And so her PowerPoint and some of the salient slides are really quite valuable, and she's easily the best and most friendly person here in the building. So for those of you who have questions, and there will be lots of questions once we're finished with the next speaker or two, there'll be a break, then more speakers, then another break. So I warmly encourage you to go and get face-to-face with Rebecca.
And come and test a bike out if you haven't already.
That's it. Big hand for Rev Bikes from Rev Bikes. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. We're just going to